So I'm Trisha Jones-Parkin, and Kelly Hess is also my co-trainer, partner in crime, whatever you want to call us, depends on the day. And this training, this whole mentoring opportunity is sponsored by and is a partnership with the Department of Workforce Services, specifically the State Office of Rehabilitation. And so we have a contact that we work with, Jason Bennington, and he's in the administrative office of VR, and that's his email. And so if at any point you're just, not sure what's happening or how to get a hold of your VR counselor or anything on the VR side, you can always reach out to Jason. You can also contact Kelly or myself, and we coordinate with Jason regularly. So we have our contact information as well as Jason's, and then our phone number is on another. I have a one-page sheet that kind of summarizes this PowerPoint that you can share, as well as the PowerPoint. So I'll be emailing this all this information to you as well, and then you can share it out. So what we're going to talk about, and again, this is a very high level overview, because the employment specialist is going to be really talking more in depth with you about the process, and it's going to be more specific to the job seeker, or the person that you're supporting, that the team is supporting. So we're going to be talking about how customized employment is different, specifically the timelines that we're using, or that we're aiming for, that we know is best practice in terms of keeping momentum and building on, the energy and what we're learning from those experiences, while also, understanding individually where people are. We know we're coming into the holiday season, so also trying to build in some flexibility, but again, having some accountability and setting up some scheduled time together so that you can get through the process, hopefully before the end of the holidays. And then, I'll kind of demonstrate what that timeline looks like. We also want to talk about a little bit what each person's role and responsibility is. And everyone's team might look a little different. So for example, Spencer is very much in school, and focused around school. So the support that the student he's working with is going to look different, and who's in that team is going to look different than somebody that Marissa or Brianna might be supporting, because they're out of school. And maybe if it was just barely, they might want to talk to that old, that teacher, if it was a couple years ago, or wanting to learn more about work experiences or whatever. But everyone's team might look a little different. So as I'm listing these responsibilities, it doesn't mean that every single person needs to be on that team. It just might, what I'm saying is if a person is on that team and has that title or role, that's what you might expect from them. So we'll talk more in depth about that. And then again, just more our contact information, and then who to reach out for, for the different pieces of the process. So customized employment, and hopefully the VR counselor explained a little bit of this to you when you started going down this process, or learned about, and you're going to work with this person, you're going to be in this class. I'm not sure exactly all the information that gets told to job seekers or supporters as this is unfolding, but just to have a comprehensive explanation. It's a service. It's a set of tools that are available through this through the service provider. So that is Brianna, Marissa. Spencer is our outlier because he is an educator, a transition specialist, and he is doing this practice in the classroom with a student. So his role looks a little different, but he is doing all of it in the same way and in the same process. So, but typically, if somebody is in adult services, there's an authorization for this service to be provided. Sorry, I'm having some challenges with my dental work that is currently happening, so I apologize if I'm difficult to understand. And so we start this process, and how it is different is that we are looking at this job seeker's interests, their skills, and then conditions of employment. And we talk more about that, but everybody has conditions of employment, or preferred conditions of employment. but we're also looking at what the employer needs. So we're trying to make that match. And by spending a lot of time with people, we're really figuring out what those things are. And then we spend time getting advice from experts doing the work or doing work in that field to learn more about what tasks might make sense. And that's how we start creating or negotiating positions when we get to job development. So we start with discovery, and that's what we do to get to know somebody really well. We find out what they're good at, what they might want to learn more about. And the other piece that's really important is their social network, not because we're asking for jobs, but because we want to know who is in this person's life that might get us connected to someone who might know or might be doing something that they're interested in or something that you want to learn more about. So we could do an informational interview, or we could find out what are the tasks that we need to be thinking about trying or doing for this particular area of interest. We want to use this information to match what this job seeker's contributions are. Oftentimes, this is where people get a little unsure about why you want to know what my network is or who's in my circle, because they're afraid you're going to run around and ask people for jobs, or you're expecting them to get this person a job. And that is not what we are doing. We are absolutely looking for just expanding that network. And there's, a whole other hour that we could talk about how people get jobs, or how, when people are connected and what that looks like, and the opportunities that come from our social networks. But when people maybe have limited capacity in terms of communication or accessing those networks, then it's up to us to leverage those in their behalf. And that's part of what this process is. So we use this individualized approach to planning and job development. This is one person at a time, one job at a time. So that's also a little bit different than maybe some of the experiences that people have had in school, right? If they did some job sampling and they went with a small group, or maybe they, tried something where it was more of a placement situation and it wasn't a good fit. So we really are trying to do something that is very person-centered, one person at a time. And so that sometimes takes a little bit longer on the front end. And then when we have all this really rich information, the goal is that we can get to job development. I wouldn't say necessarily quicker, but we know that it's a good match, and we've done some really good upfront work. The other piece that is really different is this way in which we're being collaborative. So we're drawing on the strength of community relationships. So this is, when we're spending time talking to a job seeker's, family, or who is in their life. What do you do for a living, and where do you spend time? What kind of clubs do you belong to? Are you engaged in, civil engagement? Are you doing things with the city? Are you, just kind of understanding how connected people are to their community. And if the person isn't connected, is that something they're interested in? And are there opportunities to grow that? And is that something that we can do in this process? It's very much a team approach. This is also another difference sometimes, where people on a person support team who has maybe familiar with employment, worked in supported employment, but they're not used to having to be engaged, right? They're like, well, that's the employment specialist job. You just come and get them. I'll make sure they're ready for work. And you're doing the rest. This process is different in that you are asking for input, feedback, ideas, places, people, contacts. Again, not of jobs to apply for, but where we can try some of these experiences, where somebody might know this person, where this person might be familiar or more comfortable because the environment makes sense, and and the people that you're talking to might know that, or they know somebody there. I'm being vague because, right, there's a lot of situations where that makes sense. So what I want people who watch this video to understand is that the employment specialist takes the lead, but might be coming back to get some advice or connections to others. And that is your role in being in this process, is following through. If you said you know somebody who was operating a soap making business, and this job seeker that you're working with is really into strong smells, or really is interested in learning how to make soap, that might be a really good piece to follow up on. I'm going to say this 100 times, not to ask for a job, but to get advice and learn what tasks and skills are needed and happening in soap making. One example. The other piece, again, and you've heard me say it a lot, is that we're not jumping to the job right away. This is also a very tricky place for people, because right when we say we want to work, we want to get to work, we go down this path. And this process is going there, but we're taking a little bit more time, and we're being intentional to make sure that it's the right fit. And so we're spending time in places and getting verification and gathering evidence to go in that direction. We also use a visual resume or a digital portfolio, and we share this with potential employers. We'll give a sample at the customized employment planning meeting, which is kind of the signal of we are done with discovery and we're moving into job development. That is at the end of the discovery process. And we're hoping to do that in early January, so kind of after the holiday. So people should start scheduling those end of December to be held in early January. I do have an example of a visual resume that I'll share with you. And this is what it looks like. This is an example of somebody who was in this course. And this was the first time she had done something like this, and she did a beautiful job. This was a student that she was working with, and he was transitioning from post-high school. So I really like to give credit to Summer Sylvester with beautiful ability. Are you seeing the example? No?
Your slides, not the profile.
Oh, let me try again. Thank you for sharing that. We'll try that. Can you see that now?
No, still the slide.
No.
All right, let's try this.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. So just, real quickly, I won't get all the details, and I did scrub a lot of the personal information. So talking about he's a student, he wants part-time work, what his, kind of objective is. These are some awards that he had won, characteristics or attributes about him. He has a lot of integrity, loyalty, kindness, cooperation, or cooperative. He really likes taking care of animals, so he did an experience at the Ogden Nature Center. So this was a discovery experience that they went and did, and so she took pictures. So here's evidence: carrying things, cleaning things, holding things. This was right in the middle of COVID, so lots of pictures with masks. He helped set up a greenhouse. So again, not only having the picture of it, but showing the tasks and skills that were associated with that particular activity, right? So again, very concrete about what his contributions are with these particular experiences. Customer service and cash. So we ran the treat trolley. So again, very action-oriented photos, seeing him give change, interfacing with people. Here's some cleaning activities that he did at school. These are his ideal conditions for employment. So again, this is like summarizing what we learn in discovery about somebody and then presenting it in a different way. That, right, when you see pictures of somebody doing something, that's very different than maybe a paper resume, especially if somebody hasn't had, he's never had a paid job before. He's just he's had these work experiences. So this is what he needed to be successful: a positive environment, working with people. He's really good with light physical tasks, but he does need to sit, walk or stand. He needs a variety of that. He needs support with a job coach. So letting people know that he needs and will have access to a support. These are things he can do with food prep and cooking, specifically things that he could perform for a business. And this could also be changed out, right? Depending on what business you were sharing this with, right? So obviously this had areas where there was food prep involved, maybe some light laundry, right? There were several tasks that he might be doing when they were looking at this. They were looking at potentially a school setting. It was a place that they felt like it would be a good fit for him. And then these are ways that he helps at home with his family. So helping that kind of personal connection. These are things that he does at home. These are skills and attributes that he has that would benefit his business. Again, I think these are great things that are just highlighted and could also easily be shifted around depending on who the audience was or who you were sharing this with. And then information about the employment specialist. So that's just an example of what kind of one of the end products that we create as a result of discovery and then moving into job development that you can expect. Any questions so far? I'm going to pause on the video because I feel like things go wrong and then we don't have a lot of time. So I'll just share that link and people can watch it on their own. I want to talk a little bit about the timelines. I think that's really important. Also letting you know that, right, this group of employment specialists and people that you're going to be working with are learning this process and getting mentoring and support from Kelly and I. And so it's taking them a little bit longer. We built in some check-in time. We built in some extra time. They're learning content in the middle of all of the the practical application. And so there's some additional time built in. Ultimately, we want the process to take 12 to 16 weeks. One piece that we really want people to think about is that, right, there's this additional hours of instruction that's included, and then, right, the time that it takes to do discovery. When people are learning, that's usually between 30 to 40 hours when they're working with a person, and that includes the writing time. So that's quite a bit of time if you think about, over even 6 to 12 weeks, right? That's quite a bit of time you're spending with somebody in comparison to other sort of community-based assessments that are 5 or 8 hours. So we really are getting a good idea of who this person is and what's really going to make sense. And we have a pretty high expectation about what what's coming out of this staging record and the vocational profile and this visual resume. So we also hold this employment planning meeting where we want this profile to be shared. And that's really kind of this initial phase of job development. Even though job development isn't starting until after this planning meeting, there's a whole bunch of that work that is the groundwork that is done. And so just want to kind of give you that idea that while it feels like we're not doing job development, there's a whole lot of job development happening. You just don't necessarily see it, if that makes sense, but it will be very evident at the time of the planning meeting. So people started this course and getting the content information in September on the 17th. And then we wrap up our learning sessions mid-December, along with, hoping that the people should be to the writing, kind of the writing part, wrapping up and finalizing their writing and putting together the profile. And scheduling the planning meeting to be held for early January. So this is a little bit more like example of timeline with calendar dates. So our hope is that people will start doing and scheduling home and neighborhood conversations and experiences next week. Again, we have time, but we want people to get started as quickly as possible. So we take a couple of weeks to do that. where we spend time in the person's home, learning about their community, not just their immediate neighborhood, but where they spend time, um, shopping, getting haircuts, where's the rec center, who do they know, what opportunities exist for, just all the kind of different engagement or things that we can try and connect with that this person is interested in. Then we move into those, we use that information that we learn in those first couple of weeks, and we start building what we call familiar and unfamiliar discovery experiences. So we start with familiar things that are to the person. So that might be if someone walks their dog every day, they might go observe and go walk the dog. Or if they are responsible for making dinner on Wednesday nights and they really look forward to planning the menu, going to the store, prepping all the ingredients, setting the table, that might be something that employment specialist wants to observe. Right, just all the different tasks that are associated with that, the kind of support that somebody needs, how they set up their workstation, do they listen to music while they're preparing food? Are they a recipe follower, or is it all in their head? And while some of these things may not seem important, learning about how somebody goes through a process or the learning style or the support that they need to carry out these tasks all is relatable and translatable to work environments. Even somebody being able to pull clothes out of a dryer is a task. Somebody, buttering toast, somebody does that at a restaurant, right? So while it might not seem like anybody is doing any tasks in their homes or in their spaces, we sometimes have to look a little harder and break down tasks. So doing those familiar things first and then building on those for unfamiliar experiences. An example of that is we were just checking in with an employment specialist last week who noted in the home visit that a job seeker she was working with had this great memory and skill when he met somebody to ask them their birthday, and then he could connect a celebrity birthday or something that happened in history on that day, just like instantly, like math whiz, date, time, history, trivia. But we hadn't done anything with that in terms of a discovery experience. It was just this really interesting talent that he had, but it hadn't really been explored. And so when we spent some time exploring, she's going to set up a trivia night and have him develop trivia questions and put together what a trivia night would look like. So that's an unfamiliar experience, building on a strength and talent that he already has, but not something that he's built on. Does that make sense? Okay. Then what we do after we do these familiar and unfamiliar experiences, because we're sort of getting a direction here. Somebody who regularly likes to, make meals for people or have people over for dinner or try new recipes, we might say they have an emerging culinary theme, right? They really are interested in cooking. They're taking that on themselves. Where else, or who do we talk to that is making a living doing culinary work? We probably don't want to go to the busiest restaurant in town that is, so overwhelmed and, where there's like a 2-hour wait at lunchtime, right? We don't want to go in and ask advice there, but maybe we want to ask somebody who's doing a catering business, or maybe, so that's where we get back into our network and we say, is anybody in this person's life a chef or doing a catering business or is connected to culinary that we could get some advice from, that we could go try an unfamiliar activity, right? Or cook something that we haven't done, or maybe taking a culinary class at Harmon's or something. I'm just throwing out ideas. But that's where if you want to try something unfamiliar, that you would reach out to that network. Because what we're trying to do is dial in more and get connected with the industry or this vocational area to confirm this person has this vocational theme. And we know that they have these skills and tasks, even though they need support, even though they haven't had a lot of opportunity, this is something that we want to try and go towards. We also look for three, THREE, in case you didn't understand that, themes for people. We're all multidimensional. Some people are really fixated on one thing and they're really excited about it, so it's hard to think beyond that first initial theme. Oftentimes it's animals or, technology. Somebody's really good at gaming. And so it can be tricky to expand beyond that, but we really try hard to come up with additional themes so that we can really just broaden our reach and expand those opportunities as much as possible. Then what we do after we do these informational interviews and expand these experiences, we distill it all down into a profile and develop this visual resume. And we're doing that hopefully by the middle of December. So we're taking a month to do familiar and unfamiliar discovery experiences. We're taking 3 to 4 weeks to do informational interviews. We need to do at least 3 of those. And that's also more kind of discovery experience. Oftentimes we want it to lead to that, where we'll go and get advice, and then we ask to maybe come back and try something, try a task there, just to get a feel for it, right? And see if it's the right environment, if, maybe it leads us to another place. And then when we're feeling really confident about this is where we're going to go and this is why, then we start distilling all that down, creating the profile and the resume, and then we schedule the planning meeting with the VR counselor and the whole team to share what we've learned. People can also see the staging record as we're going along if that's something that you want. We're happy to share that. We use a Google Doc. You have to have a sign-in. It's secure. And we can share that with whoever on the team would like to see it and contribute or add things in. The employment specialist is responsible for completing that. Kelly and I mentor and support them through that, but we're happy to share it with the VR counselor at any time, happy to share it with anyone on the team that would like to be involved in that. The other piece that we really like to have people be prepared for is that we're starting to do some job development at this planning meeting. What we do is we come up with 3 lists of 20 places for each of the vocational themes that we've identified for this person. So while it feels like we're not doing any work towards job development, our goal is to come out of that planning meeting with 60 places where it makes sense to go talk to people and see if it's a business and the tasks and the skills and the culture aligns with who this person is, and there's some negotiation or some opportunities to create. So there really is a lot of development happening. We just don't see it. So kind of the last piece, and this is just kind of a step-by-step of what to do. I want people to kind of understand that we're hoping to commit, and I know this is tricky inside of all the other things that you have to do, and it may not be consistent every week that it's 3 to 5 hours, but we want it to be an average that you're scheduling and spending time, whether it's once a week for a longer period of time or a couple times a week, or if you're meeting with the job seeker once a week and then you're setting aside time to capture all of that work in the staging record, uploading photos. It really will help you stay on track and keep to the timeline. Again, things come up, people get sick. It's a difficult time of year. So we want people to be supportive and communicate well. And you can certainly make adjustments to your timeline. The biggest piece is just communicating with your team and keeping everybody on the same page so that you know where we're at. Hey, we have these discovery activities scheduled, so-and-so got sick, or we're out for the holidays, whatever it might be. You just want to make sure people are staying in the loop and that there's things are getting rescheduled instead of weeks going by without progress. So conversations with people who are important to the person. Again, this is just kind of more detail about what I talked about in that other timeline. Kelly, anything you want to add at this point? cautionary tales, any other pieces?
I think you covered it really, really well. I would just say, like, um, you know, keeping lines of communication are open is really good within this work. So if you're feeling like confused or uncertain as to where we're at in the timeline and you just want a kind of an update, then please ask and check in with us because we're happy to kind of do that and also with the employment specialist that's working with your loved one because I think it can get kind of um it can start feeling a little bit long and it can start feeling like maybe there's not a lot of movement, but there is movement. We just always don't communicate that in a clear way. So by asking questions, by checking in, that's always a good way to stay up to date and to stay involved in this process.
Thank you. So I wanted to just kind of briefly go over, and again, I have a handout that has some ideas about what a person would do with this role on your team. So obviously, job seeker, most important member, right? Obviously, right, you need to want to do this work, even if you're nervous about it or you're not sure. Maybe there's things that you're not comfortable with, or maybe you need time to build rapport. All of those things are certainly valid. And we want to just make sure that we're continuing to move forward and prioritizing time to focus on employment. Family members, we really need family members to think about who is important in this person's life, who is a champion, who is connected to the community in ways that can support us with places to try things or people to talk to. Again, not asking for jobs, but building this network around this person that could give us some advice or just some resources. The VR counselor is really important to keep in the loop. Again, you can do that by sharing the staging record and they can check in on it. If it's a monthly note saying, hey, I've got the home visit scheduled and we've got our monthly schedule, we've got our schedule mapped out for the month, this is when we're meeting. I'd love to chat with you next month, whatever that looks like. Even checking in with the VR counselor, how often they would like you to connect with them, knowing that this process takes longer than something that you might be doing in a shorter time frame, right? So keeping that communication open. VR counselors can also, right, they're connected to businesses, they're connected to resources. So certainly reaching out to them for that networking and that support. Obviously, the employment specialist is the lead in coordinating these efforts, documenting the process, and explaining, right, what's happening next. If somebody has a support coordinator and is on the waiver, the home and community-based waiver, getting services from people with disabilities, they are a crucial piece. They are the ones coordinating the ongoing support for someone from voc rehab funding. Oftentimes, they might be getting additional supports if somebody needs day services or other kinds of things, if they're coming out of school. We really need to include support coordinators in these efforts. They're also connected, right? They know the person well, oftentimes, and knowing all the different sorts of pieces or other resources that could be beneficial. It's really important, I think, for other service providers like residential or supported living or day services to understand their role in how to support employment. Again, you as the employment specialist is taking the lead, but what does it look like if the person supporting them in residential doesn't know that they're doing a discovery activity in their home that evening and they're preparing dinner, or understanding how they might be implementing a behavior system and what that looks like with employment, right? Like, so understanding all those different pieces, um, and how people are supported is really, really important, and that everybody has a role, right? If there are expectations and settings that and things that don't align in the different settings that somebody's in, it can cause problems, right? If I expect somebody to follow instructions and do well, and we're going to do these things at the grocery store, but that's never expected when I go out with my other staff or my parents or whatever it is, and that's not communicated, right? We can see how that can not go well. So really just supporting and working together with other service entities. Anybody who is still in school or just leaving school or transition, you know, there is so much to be gained from people's post-school experiences, work samples, ways that they're getting supported, opportunities around technology that they've used, communication devices. And oftentimes that gets lost between school and home and a provider. So really making that connection, if possible, I think can be really, really insightful. Again, wanting to try to have people that are not paid in a person's life, I think is really, really important. It is not always easy, and it doesn't always exist for every single person. I do think, and I've seen opportunities where during the discovery process, we have been able to meet people based on these common interests, and bring them in to this person's team and really strengthen, and I think enhance the person's life and this specialist or like mentor. So being open to that and looking to people who are important or just committed to them being successful. Mine and Kelly's role, we can be as involved in each job seeker's process as is needed. We're also here to kind of troubleshoot, offer resources, advice. We've been in a lot of tricky situations ourselves, working with different job seekers. We've worked in schools, we've worked in lots of different settings, and been doing this for a while. So we have some experience to draw from, and we're certainly happy to help wherever that is needed. And then obviously we talked about Jason's role. So just sorting through any of the challenges that might be happening with authorizations or expectations on the voc rehab side, any of those pieces we can support people through. So again, this is our contact information. Mine and Kelly's, we have our mobile numbers on here, our email, and then Jason's email information again. And then hopefully you should have your employment specialist information. Obviously, they know who you are, Spencer. You've been coordinating all this work. But again, just if you have any questions or want more information, you're more than welcome to reach out.